Hello, everybody. We're going to get going. Welcome. Thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it. We appreciate your taking time out of your afternoon or evening or wherever you are, whatever time it is. We have a tight, great program tonight, and we're going to move along at a good clip, but you're going to have a lot of information that I hope was going to be really informative and inspiring, because this race in Wisconsin is incredibly important. And all of you know about it because you're here, but there are a lot of people that don't even know that it's happening, and it is critical. It is a critical race. Before I jump in, let me just thank all of the co-hosts and the sponsors. We have other grassroots groups that are co-sponsoring tonight, and they have brought their networks. And so we thank them: Indivisible Waterfront, Friends of We Have Action, the Resisters, and the Ward 3 Democrats. We really appreciate your joining us in this event and bringing along your friends and family. And we also want to thank all of the people that agreed to be co-hosts tonight, who agreed to reach out to their friends and family and invite them to this event. We very, very much appreciate it. We could not do any of these events without co-hosts, and just thank you so much. No matter how many friends and family you brought with you, you're really, really helping us. So thank you. Our goal tonight is $150,000 for the two groups that we're supporting. We're already up to $77,000 just from people donating once they got the invitation or they heard about the event. So we're well on our way. We are going to be putting the donation link in the chat several times tonight. If you've already donated, feel free to donate again. If you haven't donated, feel free to donate tonight. But if it's too distracting for you to do that, feel free to wait until tomorrow or later or the next day. You're going to have plenty of opportunities to click the link. And just letting you know, it's confusing. Sometimes grassroots groups have not gotten up sort of big enough to have their own tax ID number and other identifications. And so when you click the link, it's going to show you Minnesota grassroots groups. But you're at the right place. These two groups that we're supporting tonight in Wisconsin, they have just that umbrella helping them launch their work. So don't worry if you click it and you get confused by the word Minnesota. It's for Wisconsin. That's why we're here. So before I turn it over to Jim Shelton, who is our political analyst strategist for 31st Street, I'm just going to say a few very quick words. 31st Street, for those of you who are new to us, started in 2017. It started in my living room with 30 people. I live on 31st Street in Washington, D.C., and that's why it's called 31st Street, because we didn't have any other name. But we have been working to elect Democrats ever since then, first at a pretty small scale, and now at a broader, larger scale. And what I wanted to do right now, rather than go through our whole history, is just highlight some of the special election efforts that we have supported since 2017. I asked, before all of you joined, I asked Mary and Jim, who have been here since the beginning, whether they could remember a special election effort that we supported that did not win, and they could not remember one. I cannot remember one either. So just a quick highlight of our special election successes. In 2017, we jumped in when we barely knew what we were doing to help someone named Jackie Smith, who was running for the Prince William County in Virginia clerk of court. And it was a really important position because the clerk of court makes a lot of decisions and moves paperwork forward on a lot of special issues. And it was important. And we jumped in quickly to canvass and donate, and she won. We also heard about a very important U.S. House race in Pennsylvania, Connor Lamb, who you may have heard of. Connor Lamb was running. We Skyped him into one of our meetings in the kitchen, and he talked to us for a little while. We loved him, and We supported him. We actually canvassed for him in Pennsylvania. It was really exciting. And he won. That was stupendous. Then in 2020, we actually supported Raphael Warnock, and he was running. That was actually a special election when he was running first time around. You know the history of that election. Then in 2022, we learned of a very important Virginia State Senate seat in Virginia Beach, a gentleman named Aaron Rouse. And it was really important to get that seat, a Democrat in Virginia Beach, especially because in Virginia, as you know, right now, it's a majority Republican, and Youngkin is doing all sorts of things that we're very angry about. We raised over $20,000 for Mr. Rouse, and he won. Thank goodness for that. And here we are in a special election in Wisconsin for Judge Janet Prostasiewicz. And as you'll hear tonight, it's just an incredibly important race, not just because of what the Supreme Court in Wisconsin can do or won't do, but because Wisconsin is crucial. It's crucial this year. It's going to be crucial next year. So we're just really glad that you're here to support this race and this state. And you're going to be hearing from the leaders of the two grassroots groups that we're supporting tonight. And we welcome them. And now I'm handing it over to Jim.
Terrific. And let's hope we can extend this winning streak to at least one more. So I'm Jim Shelton, the political analyst, retired epidemiologist. And the best way I can communicate is by showing slides. So that's what I'm going to do. And again, thanks to our co-host. But many of you know us pretty well, but a good number of you don't. So I'm going to just go ahead and show one slide about how we think about things, how we go about what we do, and why we work hard to make good investment choices for you and for us, because we invest in these races ourselves as well, So we look hard for strategic opportunities. Obviously, this is one in Wisconsin, and we'll hear, of course, more about that, which I'm sure you've already heard a lot. And a lot of times that means we zig when other people are zagging, and looking for those opportunities that are kind of not that well noticed. Again, I think that this is a good example, as we'll lay out for you. We're highly focused, so we just work in certain states for the most part, and really kind of cone in. We try to do our homework a lot and know what we're about. And we use a lot of evidence of a lot of different kinds to make our choices, and use a form of due diligence to sort of use that evidence. Lastly, or actually one more thing, is that when things change, we follow things, and when things change, we change, and we expect that we will change over time, especially during an election cycle. And that's not true of many organizations. They make their choices and they kind of stick with them. And a lot of that is because of timing. And timing is really important, both for the short term and the long term. Okay, now, of course, shifting to Wisconsin and our two great grassroots groups, Progress North, all the way up at the top of Wisconsin, 5 counties, Grassroots of Western Wisconsin, 7 counties near the Twin Cities, and both near Minnesota. And that's, I guess, maybe partly why they have sponsoring organizations, as Lisa said, in Minnesota. But they're definitely in Wisconsin and working hard for all of us. And here's what we're about. Judge Janet Prostasiewicz, just to show her smiling face and give us a little bit of morale boost there. It is about her, but it's also about 2024, as we'll be talking about. Now, I'm going to try to not go into a lot of detail about why this race is so important. I hope almost all of you have a good sense of that. But I did think I would just take the opportunity to put this sort of poster kind of presentation that I ran across that just lays out a lot of the bad things that the Supreme Court in Wisconsin has been doing in recent years. But I want to focus on one thing in particular. Even if you don't care about Wisconsin, if you care about the US House and you care about Kevin McCarthy and Marjorie Taylor Greene and so forth, this is plenty of reason right here, because this is a state where Governor Evers won last year by 51% of the vote, a very healthy win, especially by Wisconsin standards. But because of extreme gerrymandering, there are only 2 Democrats out of 8 in that in their House delegation. So if redistricting comes up again, and I think this, I'm told there's a good chance that it will, both for this, the House and for the legislature, then we could get a better deal, give us 1 or 2, maybe more Democratic seats. We only need 5 to get the majority again. All right, but now here's something that is probably the most important slide that at least I'm going to show. And I borrowed it from some folks. And I can't claim credit for coming up with it myself, but it's a very interesting slide of all the states and DC that have electoral votes, and they're ranked on the basis of what the margin was for Biden, or for Trump on the right-hand side. So you'll see it starts with the District of Columbia that had the best plurality, if you will, for Biden. And over here on the right-hand side, we have Wyoming, which had the best plurality for Trump. But look right here, smack in the middle, right at the fulcrum, right at the tipping point, is Wisconsin. And, you know, if you look at the other sort of states that are around Wisconsin, we're going to work very hard for Pennsylvania, but just getting Pennsylvania, Nevada, Michigan, and Minnesota, that's not enough. We got to do more than that. And I don't think we can count on Georgia. I think we have a decent shot in Arizona, but we really need to win Wisconsin. So that's why trying to build up infrastructure and capability now in Wisconsin is part of the objective and part of the reason why we want to support these grassroots groups. Okay, now I'm going to give you my sense of what I'm hearing about what's going on in the overall campaign. And then we'll hear from our guests about how they, you know, are fit in and what they're doing. But I want to tell you that it is a very united, very well coordinated and robust effort that the state is putting on, the Democrats, beginning with the Wisconsin Democratic Party, which is very well organized and mobilized. Judge Janet's campaign, which at this point is basically the same thing. They're combined. After the primary is over, they're allowed basically to combine forces. And then there's another huge player, which is America Votes. And they have numerous partners, unions, C4 partners, Sierra Club, Planned Parenthood, et cetera. And they're very well mobilized and doing a lot of the work. There's a lot of other independent expenditure efforts that are going on. And there are also local elections that are going on. And we actually want to try to, in a way, help with the local elections as well as the elections for the Supreme Court, which of course is the primary thing. Okay, so what is their strategy? You see, I get SCOWI, you might scratch your head. Now, what is that? Well, that's the Supreme Court of Wisconsin. So it's a lot easier than writing it out. Sorry for the acronym. It's considered rightly a low information rates, but I've got this little tag next to it because I think it's not as low information as a lot of low information rates. It's still a turnout election for the most part, but there's persuasion in it as well. Their overall strategy is, and not surprisingly, primarily focusing on the 9 biggest urban areas, and the counties there are listed. I guess they're the counties. And anyway, I got the list from them, especially for their field work. And in addition to that, they're trying to reach suburban women, not surprisingly, because of Dobbs and abortion, and that's very potent. A lot of media work, primarily television, as you might expect. They have a huge television budget. Now, those of you who know us know that we're not particularly fond of television as the best form of winning elections. But I think it's fine that they're doing that. Of course, they need to. They're also doing digital and mail and other things as well. But in terms of the marginal dollar, it wouldn't be the kind of thing we would necessarily want to support. They're obviously focusing a lot on the turnout base and a lot of work on colleges. They did a great job in Dane County and Madison in the primary, and they're going to build on that. There's of course colleges throughout the state. And they also want to focus on early and mail vote. They're hoping to get about 30, they have early voting in Wisconsin, including registration on election day, and I guess during the early vote as well. And mail vote, they want to try to get 30% of the vote out that way. So it makes for a fine strategy. And they're very vigorous. They're on the offensive. They've actually, almost in a preemptive way, gotten on the airways and so forth, and gotten off on a much better foot than Republican opponents. So it's actually a really good effort. But I do want to say that even though we did really well in the primary last week, the election in April is still going to be a whole new ball game that we're going to have to really work at very hard. That's because Wisconsin's always close. And the opposition is now united. They were, kind of fighting one another during the primary, but that's over now. They got one candidate. The dark money folks, we're told, are going to throw a mountain of money at us, but we haven't really seen it yet, but we're told it's going to be a mountain of money, and it'll be, kind of assassination kind of stuff, dirty laundry kind of mudslinging kind of thing. And the turnout's expected to be about 50% higher than the primary. So that's another, 50% of new voters that need to be enlisted in our side. And then lastly, we want to win the down ballot races. So all these are reasons to, keep pushing as hard as we can into the April 4 election. Okay, so we have these folks that you're going to meet and hear from. Now, why did we select them? Well, first of all, because they work in rural areas. I call them rural-ish because they're not necessarily waves and grain. They're a lot of times the people they're trying to reach out to are somewhat suburban, small towns, small cities, that sort of thing. And but nevertheless, they're in a different part of the state, and that's about 30% of the electorate live in those kind of areas. Now, we're not covering that entire area, but we've been losing rural areas, and we need to especially for 2024, we need to do a decent job in rural areas in key states like Wisconsin. We think that the groups are really very capable and very energetic. We got really good recommendations from key folks and did our own due diligence as usual, talked to them and so forth. So we think that they're good from that perspective, capable. Okay, now this is something that's really, really important too, which is these folks are there. They've been there, they're gonna be there. Unlike some activities that come and go, the roller coaster of campaign cycle and so forth. And we really like that. We also really like the fact that you've got a marriage of volunteers and paid staff that can work together again for a long-term kind of impact. We believe additional funding will be put to very good use. And of course, as I've been sort of building up to all along, we want to build capacity for 2024 and beyond through this kind of group. So we appreciate all the help we hope you're going to provide to help us reach our goal tonight. And here's just a picture of our two directors. And with that, I'm gonna actually just show one more picture and introducing Janelle Ludwig Krause, who's the Executive Director of Grassroots of Western Wisconsin, or as they are known, GROWW. And I'll stop sharing. And I know Jen is here, so welcome, Jen.
Awesome. I am so glad to be with all of you here tonight, and I could not agree more with everything Jim said. So that was really, really fantastic. The more I've gotten to know your group through Jim and Mary and looking at your website, I just have so much admiration for what you are doing and so much gratitude for the support that you're giving us and the partnership that we're forming for this race. So thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and just share a few slides because it's so much more fun to see photos than to just look at my little tiny square. And I'm going to also start my timer because I know you are an on-time bunch. So this is our group of grassroots leaders that graduated from our last grassroots organizing school that took place in January. 25 new grassroots organizing leaders were trained and are now working on our projects. So our mission is that we build power together through the political process to create the change we need for everyone in our communities to make ends meet, live with dignity, and have a voice in shaping the decisions that impact us. And as Jim said, we're in Western Wisconsin. I put a little dot for Minneapolis, St. Paul here, so you can kind of see that we're really close. And it is rural, small town area. There are two UW Riverfall campuses, UW campuses in our 7-county area, River Falls and Stout, which is in Menominee. 30% of people that live in our area struggle with making ends meet. And we are in the Twin Cities media market, and I'll talk more about that in a bit. Much like what Lisa Hedrick said, we started around a dining room table in 2019. We have a common roots there, and it was really to lead up to the November 2020 election. There was a realization that rural places sometimes get forgotten by those big strategies that focus on big urban areas, but for statewide races, getting the little margins from rural places is really, really critical. But as we were working towards the November 2020 election, we kept on running into the problem of gerrymandering, which has already been mentioned here. We live in a part of the state that is highly gerrymandered. We have sometimes 15, 17 point disadvantage in the race because of the way that the districts are drawn for our local assembly people. And there are other issues we work on, such as climate change, expanding broadband, and we could not get any traction with any of our elected officials. And so in parallel with the November 2020 electoral work that we did, we launched a project to get fair maps and gerrymandering in Wisconsin. So that was a few years ago. And I want to say that last spring, we were extremely disappointed because the Wisconsin Supreme Court made the final decision on the maps for Wisconsin, and they were worse. Our new maps are worse than our old maps, despite going to Madison and doing everything we possibly could. And so for us, this Wisconsin Supreme Court race is a little personal too. We feel we worked really hard to end gerrymandering, and we were left in the dust. And so this race will impact the environment, women's reproductive rights, gun safety measures, a lot of things. But for us, really securing democracy through the Wisconsin Supreme Court is our number one goal. And so this is just a huge, huge opportunity to get a new Wisconsin Supreme Court judge that would be favorable to fair districts in Wisconsin. So this is our team. I like to call it our dream team. These are staff people. We've got our director of organizing, John Calabrese, who is leading our SCOWI race. And then basically all of us have other roles, but we're all chipping in because this is so important. So we're taking a little pause on some of our other work just to dive right into this campaign with all as much as we can. And we are a small team, and we work with a lot of volunteers. We don't call them volunteers, we call them grassroots leaders because that's really what they are, and they are powering our project. So I just wanted to put the names up of our main leaders. Karen Zacharias is leading this effort. She's the team lead. And then Danielle, Douglas, Wendy, and Dawn all have roles underneath her, and then they have teams of volunteers, and then all of our canvassing and phone banking and letter writing is all run by volunteers. And this is the way that we know that we can build power, because this is scalable. We don't want to have a big organization with lots of people in it. We want to really harness the grassroots power, the people power that we have in Western Wisconsin. So our tactics, much of what you would expect, we're in persuasion mode where we are in Western Wisconsin. Up to 70% of people vote conservatively. So not only do we need to get out the vote for the people that already will support Janet, but we need to do some persuasion too. So we're basing a lot of our canvassing on shared stories, our personal stories, shared values. And then we'll move into get out the vote and vote tripling as the election gets closer. So here's a little calendar of what we're doing. Every Monday, we go to both university campuses and knock doors. Every Thursday, we get on the phone. Every Saturday, we knock doors in one of the towns in our 7-county area. And I just heard today that we're adding some Sunday canvases. The 26th, we're going to go to Baldwin, which is the town closest to me. So I'm super pumped about that. And so more funding from you will allow us to do more canvassing on Sundays. And then I also wanted to point out we're in the Twin Cities media market, which is a really big challenge on races like this, because the radio stations come from Minnesota. The people listen to Minnesota Public Radio, watch Minnesota Public TV. And so really it's incumbent on us to get the word out. You know, we're very far, Progress North is even farther, but we're very far from Madison and Milwaukee. And so getting the word out in local news and social media is really, really important to us. And just like Jim said, we view this as an opportunity to build our capacity. We are training a lot of people, dozens and dozens of volunteers on canvassing and phone banking to really set a solid foundation for our work in 2024. And this, of course, can continue. We want to grow and grow and grow, but really we see this opportunity as really setting foundation and growing our grassroots base so that we're ready for 2024. And on that note, I'm just going to leave you with this photo because I know Shawnu is next, and Shawnu is in this picture. This was a picture we took last summer at a Wisconsin Rural Coalition meeting. And to agree with Jim, there is a really coordinated effort here on the ground. And that's it. Thank you so much for your time, your donations, and it's been such a pleasure being part of this tonight.
Thank you so much, Janelle. We really appreciate your coming. It sounds like you just have an incredible energy out there, and we are really glad that you're working so hard before this election. Just got a few more weeks. Now we are going to Shawnu. Let's see, where is she? Is she here somewhere?
I'm right here, if talking is helpful in finding me.
Yes, awesome. Take it away.
All right, great. So many amazing faces. Well, first of all, I would love to thank Jim and Mary and Lisa and the folks at 31st Street for this amazing opportunity. Really echo what Janelle has said already, in that, with Progress North, the relationships we build not only on the ground, but with funders, we really see as a partnership and an investment in our work and in the work that we plan to do in the future. I am also going to share my screen. So I have a few slides as well that I would like to share. Just give me 1 second. There we go. So this is just us at the beginning. In classic organizer style, I always start out first with just talking a little bit of who I am and where Progress North really comes from. So I'm the oldest of 7. I'm a mom of 2 beautiful kiddos that are up on the screen there. I have a 13-year-old, a 3.5-year-old, and now a 1-year-old puppy. So life is very busy always at my house. I grew up in northwestern Wisconsin, so the area that I am organizing in is very much my home base. My parents still currently live in Red Cliff. I live just outside of Superior, Wisconsin. And the work that I have organized around has really been focused on issues that have directly impacted my family. Gonna go on to the next one here. So a little bit of background about Progress North. So we also started very small. So share a little bit of origin with what you had shared, Lisa, and what Janelle had shared. We launched in January of 2020, and it started with just me until I hired our organizer in March of that same year. A little background for folks, that the Minnesota aspect has come up a couple of times. So to give a little bit of background about that, we're in the Twin Ports media market of Duluth, Minnesota, and Superior, Wisconsin. So echo much of what Janelle already shared about the Twin Cities area, is that we often, to our media market, is dominated by Duluth, Minnesota, and Minnesota news often. But we're very much then bordering. Another aspect of that is that 7 years of my organizing background I spent at Take Action Minnesota. So although I lived in Wisconsin, I was organizing in Minnesota for 7 years with Take Action Minnesota, and they are now our fiscal sponsor and really responsible for helping me kind of have the operational support necessary to have launched Progress North in the first place. So our organizing has really always been focused on creating people power and really building out the progressive infrastructure in our region of the state. I don't have a beautiful map like Janelle did, but Janelle kind of alluded to it in that initial picture. She showed us right up on the corner of the state, right along the lake. And we cover a 5-county area. So outside of the people power and base building and organizing and all that comes with that, including leadership development, the infrastructure and ecosystem that we've really been able to build in our region has included a lot of organizations, including Janelle at GROWW, the Wisconsin Rural Coalition, and the work that we've done there. We've been really fortunate that Janelle and GROWW and myself and Progress North have kind of grown and developed alongside each other and really been able to lean on each other for support as well. So I want to lift that up too, that that's been a really unique way for us to continue to partner as well. All of our staffs really have stories where they have been directly impacted by systems and policies either currently or in the past. And so the work that we do is really always aimed, regardless of the program, the electoral work we're doing is really aimed at dismantling white supremacy, gender oppression, and corporate power. So I think it's always important when talking to folks that we're asking to support our work financially, to lift up some of the work that we have done. Here, I'm going to try and move this over a little bit. To lift up some of the past work that we have done and been successful in. So our organizing is really building relationships at the cornerstone of our work. So whether it's during the election season or on an off year, which Wisconsin, you'll find out, it doesn't have many off years where it comes to elections. We are consistently building our base, expanding our membership, doing grassroots leadership training with our members, much like Janelle and the folks at GROWW, and really trying to motivate our voting population. So over this past year, we had 19 engagement events. We had 365 attendees. Those folks, like our work is really, I think Jim put it like the marriage of like paid staff and volunteers. And that in that our volunteers were sent over 3,000 postcards encouraging folks to vote, and sent almost 150,000 texts in collaboration with Field Team 6. And that was just our volunteer-led program last year. Our electoral field work last year, we knocked over 10,000 doors. We made over 9,000 calls and sent 76,000 mailers with 3 different phases, all targeted at the election last year. In addition to that, our comms and digital footprint is key to the work we do, much because of the fact that we are competing in a media market that doesn't often highlight our region. We are consistently combating disinformation, where Fox News is often the only source of news that folks are receiving. And we live in a fairly rural part of the state. So the comms and digital work that we do is really key and pivotal in our ability to reach more people, but to also combat disinformation and educate voters along the way. And so last year's electoral cycle, I threw some numbers up there. It's kind of insane. I mean, we started out our first year, I think, with a projected budget of like $1,000 to use for electoral comms and digital work. And we were able to really incrementally increase that over the past couple of years. So we streamed on Hulu. We had ads across all of the Meta platforms. We were on Snapchat. And really, we were able to use the messaging we had tested early on in the year across all of that work. And so that brings us to the Supreme Court election. I won't reiterate, because Jim and Janelle have already done a really beautiful job of kind of setting up why the Supreme Court election is so important. But this is a piece that we've already sent out to our folks pre-primary, really lifting up what's at stake. But what really feels like it's at stake right now is everything. It really feels like everything's at stake right now. And so our plans for engagement, we already have a plan in place, and it's already in motion to really deploy an aggressive digital strategy, much like we did in the last election, which will include running a congressional level mail program. I have already hired a part-time field canvasser who will partner with our organizer and our volunteer-led canvassing program to go out and be talking to voters, much like Janelle said, Thursday must be the magical day because our canvassing efforts will also be happening on Thursdays. And we're hoping to hire additional canvassing staff, which that is also part of what not only your donations help support, but also any donations we're able to bring in helps us hire more folks and have an even bigger digital and communications footprint this year. And then really to close, I'm gonna leave it on the pictures of some of the cute pictures from last year. But really this helps us build for the long term, because you can't organize people around any one particular candidate. It's just not how long-term power building and infrastructure is built. Like, we need to have the consistent relationship building year round, talking to folks about what drives them, issues they care about, to really be able to then talk to them about candidates and turn them out to support the progressive folks we need to win up and down the ballot. And I'll just end with saying I appreciate so much the support, the opportunity to meet with you all, and just thank you for the contributions and the ability to highlight our work.
Thank you, Shawnu, and thank you also to Janelle. That was so impressive. I'm Aaron Hamburger. I am the membership chair at 31st Street Swing Left, and I'm also the designated Q&A fielder. So we're just going to take a brief moment for a couple of questions. I see Jim just noted we're at $90,000. That is amazing. On our way to our goal of 150. Fantastic. I noticed someone was asking, where is the link to donate? And in case you cannot find it, it's in the chat. You also received it on your invitation. We will also send it out to you again with our thank you cards for attending this presentation. So no worries, you can always find it. You can also go to our website, 31ststreet.org. You can find it there. We will definitely make it available to you if you are looking for it. If you have questions, feel free to put them in the chat. I'm just going to throw out one that came up earlier, which was a comment about how this is about building infrastructure for blue wins down the road, not just the Wisconsin Supreme Court. So maybe Shawnu or Janelle, either one of you, can you speak to like sort of the layering that happens, like once you get somebody, out there and voting in like this primary, how that might build toward like, the Democratic presidential candidate in 2024, for example. Shawnu, you're on mute, or whoever wants to go. Janelle?
I'll say something quick, and Shawnu, you can fill in. I think for us, the two main things that we look to do as organizers is build relationships with new people and develop leaders. So that's really where we see our opportunities is maybe we'll have voters, they voted once in an April election. Yes, they'll probably vote again in an April election and a November election, and we'll contact them again. But really, it's building our base and building our capacity as an organization, because if we have 40 people canvassing and the next year we're able to have 80 people canvassing, that's twice as much, So really, we're looking at building like the capacity of our organization, both volunteers, and then all of those volunteers, we have a plan to position them and lead them up the ladder of engagement. They become leaders, and then we can welcome in more volunteers. So it's really, that's how I see the capacity building.
Wonderful. That's a great answer.
And I'm sorry, Aaron, the only thing I would add to that, because I would have said the same, is political education. I got a little wowed by the visual that Jim showed of the circles and like the ability to like kind of visually see how things might shift and sway. And I think that's a really good representation of that leadership development level that you have to do, of also educating people about the different races, about civic engagement, and about the importance. It kind of goes hand in hand with the leadership development piece of really getting them to see the bigger picture.
Interesting question that just popped up in the chat from Dave and Toko. How did the Wisconsin Supreme Court become such a partisan institution?
I think we'd have to ask an expert, but everything is partisan right now in Wisconsin. I'll let you know when Cheers and beer become partisan. It's probably down the road.
Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness.
I would also say we'd have to maybe reference someone that has more political knowledge than me of the history. My knowledge goes as far as, I think it kind of stems back to Walker and some of like folks that maybe he had supported and then subsequently helped get elected. And I think that's where we really saw the shift.
Okay, and I have one final question that I was just wondering about. It seems like in our current age, persuasion just seems so impossible. In the areas that you're working in, they're inundated with Fox News. It's a very red area. If either one of you want to talk about maybe like a story where you met somebody and was able to persuade or move them, I'd love just to hear a brief anecdote.
We don't know who to go first. I'll just say what we really lean into deep canvassing in all of our scripts. So, you know, telling a story, showing some vulnerability, and helping other people open up. That's really where there's the magic, and I think there's no other way around it. And it's time consuming, but I haven't done any deep canvassing yet this year on this race, but last summer we were deep canvassing around just asking our community, our county board to allocate ARPA funds to expanding broadband. And I had a conversation with someone who was just saying, you know, I don't care about that. It doesn't impact me. And I shared a story, and then they started talking about their niece that lives in a different state, and how she wasn't able to do online schooling as she had hoped, and just drawing out those stories and then helping someone relate that to someone that lives down the street from them and is experiencing the same thing, and bringing about that compassion. I think that's really where we can see the magic really, and building that trust at, you know, in a 10, 15, 20-minute conversation, getting to sometimes some really personal things with people. And so it's not knock on a door and try to get to the next one as soon as possible. It's knock on the door and try to build that trust so you can have a really meaningful conversation.
Wonderful. That's a great story. All right. Well, we are running short on time. And Shawnu, I see a question for you in the chat. But I'm going to hand over the mic to Roberta McInerney, who's on our leadership committee, and she has a few words for us. So Roberta, take it away.
Thanks, Erin. Hi, everyone. As Erin said, I'm Roberta McInerney, and a few people on the Zoom know me as Bourbon, which is my childhood and pre-lawyer nickname. But as Erin said, I'm part of 31st Street's leadership team. I want to start by thanking all of you by attending this event tonight and spreading the word to your friends and family, which so many of you have done. Each of you is taking action to protect our values and our democracy. We Democrats have a lot to feel good about right now. Going against history, we did really well in the midterm elections. Unemployment is at historic lows. Wages are rising. And undeterred by approval ratings, President Biden is taking courageous steps to show the world who America is. But we're on a razor's edge, and we can't let up. Our successes happen and continue to happen when people like us take action to make them happen, when we become the change we want. And I ask you to ask yourself, how much is it worth to you to have a progressive majority on the Wisconsin Supreme Court? Who do you want deciding Wisconsin court cases on voting rights, gerrymandering, reproductive rights, and especially the validity of Wisconsin electors for the 2024 presidential election? And do you want a Republican or a Democrat to be the next president of the United States? And what can you do to help make that happen? Most of us can't go to Wisconsin to help out, but we can support these on-the-ground grassroots groups that are turning out our voters. I know what I want, and I know that one person at a time, we can make it happen. That's why I've committed to donating $3,000 for these two groups. And I'm asking you to do what you can. How much can you give based on your own situation if you really dig deep to support democracy and Democrats in Wisconsin? It might be more and it might be less. That's not the important thing. It's that you do as much as you can, whatever that is. Finally, as Black History Month comes to a close, I'm inspired by a quote from the courageous and determined Harriet Tubman. Every great dream begins with a dreamer. Always remember, you have within you the strength, the patience, and the passion to reach for the stars, to change the world. Please join all of us at 31st Street in reaching for the stars. Thank you all very much.
Thanks, Roberta.
Thank you.
So you'll see the link in the chat a couple more times. We're coming to a close. We really appreciate your being here. I saw that Shawnu answered, I think, one or two questions in the chat that people had put in there. And, you know, if you have any follow-up questions and you want to just shoot an email to me or Mary or Jim, feel free to do that. If you are new to 31st Street with this event and you'd like to become a member, we would love to have you. We are ever growing. And in order to do that, you can just go to 31ststreet.org and sign up, or just contact any of us and we'll bring you along and you'll get all the news about what we're doing. Thanks so much. We've raised a lot of money so far tonight, even in this 1 hour. But we're going to just keep going until we get to our goal, $150,000. We will get there. So thanks again and good night.